This episode we'll be discussing section 6 of the assessment, which is security update management. So Neil, what are the requirements for this section?
Okay, the major requirement of this is you need to be running a supported operating system, and all operating systems should be supported. So that's all of those you declare in the scope, and all software you're using in the organisation should be supported. By that, what we mean for Cyber Essentials, it needs to be receiving security updates on a regular basis. There's no defined regular basis, but the vendors will publish what are called end-of-life dates. When it goes end-of-life, it no longer receives security updates. This is absolutely vital because we need all security updates to be applied within 14 days. And this is the high and critical ranked security updates. So it uses a scoring method called CVSS3. And this method, so if you score a 7 or above on that scale, which is an internationally recognised scale for measuring vulnerabilities, the patches and updates and fixes now that vendors release need to fix the ones above 7 to 10 on the severity scale. You know, we see regular critical ones that are 9 and above they provide a threat to your organisation, and that's why we say all high and critical must be patched within 14 days.
And that's anything over 7?
Yeah, over the score of CVS 7. That's something you'd come to, you'd come to ID Cyber to talk to them about the scoring. It's not the easiest thing to do because different vendors have different methods of, communicating the high and criticals. Sometimes they don't call them high and critical. Apple won't publish them, etc. But we always advise everybody on it. And we've got a knowledge hub for Cyber Essentials where you can find some of this information out on the IASME website. So we've tried to make it a bit easier. But if you're really struggling with it, come to your partners here or wherever you've got it. But the Cyber Essentials knowledge hub.
So from an assessor perspective, Ian, what are the common pitfalls with the security update management?
Well, some customers in these sections, some of them will provide large, extravagant build numbers. Some of them will only provide major build numbers for software updates. What's the preference? What is compliant in this section?
This is a difficult area, okay, because not all vendors use the same methodology to do their build numbers, etc. So let's give you an example. What we want is, let's take the Apple iPhone. So there are 3 supported versions of the iOS or iPhone operating system. That's iOS 16, 17 and 18. Okay, that shows if you've got that installed, you're able to receive the security updates. As far as the build number goes, it won't, if you give us an out-of-date build number, we will tell you need to update as soon as possible, but you're not going to automatically fail. But if you gave us a operating system version that was 15, 14, 13, 12, you will automatically fail the assessment. Okay, but this is the same, but Windows is a completely different thing completely. So we're looking at the feature releases, and they're often known as 21H2, 22H2, 23H2, 24H2, but there are certain versions of them like 21H2 that is no longer receiving security updates. So it's again, you may need to talk, it's not the easiest thing to understand because the vendors do it differently. So, but we're looking for the major build releases, okay, or the major versions.
Another section that comes up is software licensing. If software or firmware requires an annual fee, can customers meet compliance in that section if they're not paying that annual fee, if they're not renewing that license?
This is a difficult area and is something that comes up from time to time. And we're talking about there are certain software products out there that are critical parts of infrastructure in larger organisations especially, but can be for smaller as well. So we're talking about, there's products out there called Citrix that gives you virtual desktops and the licensing. There's a lot of virtualization software out there, such as VMware, etc. But they need you to buy an annual license because that's the way you get permissions and access to download the security updates. If you don't maintain that license on an annual basis, you won't maintain those security updates, and that could cause you an issue at a later date. That is not I have to say, a problem with Cyber Essentials is we can't offer you a free version of how you can get those or anything like that. That's the choice of the vendor, is how they deliver those updates. But we do require those updates, to be maintained, to maintain Cyber Essentials compliance.
Grand. Is it okay not to use auto updates for Cyber Essentials?
Yeah, there's many times when you would not use auto updates. You would certainly have this in server environments.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to use it, but we would certainly recommend it for end user devices, because it's the best way to make sure those devices, which could be multiple numbers of them, it's the easiest way to keep them up to date. But perhaps if you're in a server environment or something like that, you would want to have a bit more control over it, so you can do a manual process or use some vendor software or something to manage that process. But make sure they still have to be applied within 14 days of vendor release.
Superb.
Yeah.
And lastly, how can customers move unsupported software out of scope of the assessment?
I'm glad you've brought this up, because this is something we do need to talk about a lot. Is we know there are organisations who sometimes don't have any choice, but they have to use unsupported software. But unsupported software that no longer receives regular security updates presents a threat to any organisation that's using it. And let's remember, the principle around Cyber Essentials is protect from threats on the internet. What you want to do is use what we call network segregation and move those unsupported software, unsupported operating systems to a network segment that is further away from the internet and has no internet connectivity on that network segment. If you really, really must have internet on that, we can't allow that network segment to be part of the scope of Cyber Essentials assessment, and that means you couldn't have whole company certification. Okay, it's that principle of network segmenting your networks and not having a flat network. Remember, if you have unsupported software, unsupported operating system on an in-scope network, that could provide a threat to your network because it's got vulnerabilities. Certain operating systems go end of life and they are never going to have their vulnerabilities ever fixed again. And if they are exploited, you've got a threat on your network, and you've got to remember that if you're using that kind of stuff, unsupported operating systems and software, it's when you're going to get attacked, not if you get attacked.
Not if,
Okay.
yeah. So it's very important to segment those unsupported.
Yeah, you always talk about network segmentation. It's something we talk about an awful lot at IASME. We've done a lot of guidance around it, but it might take a bit of technical support to get it in place. But it is effective.
No, that's great. Thanks very much.
Superb. Thank you very much.
And thanks, Ian. If your organisation is interested in obtaining Cyber Essentials, check out our website, cyberessentials.online.